Ask yourself, homeboy, why is that?
Because I would crumble under pressure. You put something in front of me. I'm like, I didn't do nothing.
How's your week, bud?
It's been all right, all things considered. I put a lot of YouTube work in this week, which is nice.
I saw that you put in a bunch.
It's been fun. It's been kind of like I just had some inspiration. Some things actually came through. And it's just like, all right, damn it, let's do it.
Yeah, good job by you. This week I went through 2 YouTube holes. One which I'm going to start talking about, and everyone's ears are just going to like shut off for a second, but there's a reason for it.
Okay.
So, do you know who Zach Greinke is?
Not ringing a bell.
He is a Major League Baseball pitcher.
Now that would be why I don't.
and also that's why everyone's ears are shutting down. But there's a reason for this, right? Because I love good sports stories. It's one of my favorite things in the whole world.
Yeah.
And this guy is like, when he gets into Major League Baseball, he has debilitating mental illness, like massive mental problems. I don't know if it's mental illness. He's clinically depressed, and there's also something else wrong with him. And so his first couple years, he's in the minor leagues. He goes directly from high school to the minor leagues, which is super rare.
Mm-hmm.
And he is in the minors, and he quickly advances. He's like one of the best scouted players. He quickly advances through the ranks. He goes from AAA to AA to single A in like a year and a half. Or, I'm sorry, single A, AA, AAA. That's how it goes. And so he's in AAA, and his coach comes in and says to him, "Hey, congratulations. The Kansas City Royals have just decided to bring you up."
Mm-hmm.
And so he says what is supposed to be the happiest day of his life. He says to his coach, "Do you think they'd be okay with me going back to single A, which is 2 demotions, and learning how to be a shortstop?" And the reason being is because he has these massive issues with the spotlight on him. Like he does not like people even speaking to him that he doesn't know. Like he has there's a lot of like mental problems happening with this guy. Well, the coach is like, no, you're gonna go to the majors and good luck. So he goes to the major league, and he instantly becomes the best pitcher for the Royals. Like not even close. He's the best pitcher.
Mm-hmm.
But he doesn't let his teammates talk to him. When he's in the bullpen, he'll go and sit in the stands where there's no one seated, so no one speaks to him. Like there's all this crazy stuff, right? And because of all of his mental problems, he keeps getting sent back to the minors, even though he's this really good pitcher. He keeps going back to the minors, and he's got real talent, like unbelievable talent. And finally, he's in like AAA somewhere, and his teammate says, "Hey, man, you should go to a psychologist." So he does, and he gets meds, and he immediately changes, like immediately becomes one of the best pitchers in the majors. He wins several Cy Young awards. He becomes an all-star. He is he has one of the biggest pitching contracts of all time. He becomes a Dodger. He goes to several other teams, but because he's still kind of weird, he's the weirdest guy in the major leagues. Like being a baseball fan, there are certain words that when you hear it, what you take away from that is, oh, that guy's a prick. So like when sports writers talk about a certain baseball player and they say that he's weird, that's code for this guy sucks. Like you don't want to be around this person.
Yeah.
But they're describing Zach Greinke, and I just always thought he was a prick because they're always calling him weird. But he's actually honest to God weird. And my favorite story, the one that really got me on the deep dive, is that one night they're playing against some team, and there's a guy at the plate, and the coach is trying to shit talk this guy at the plate from the opposing team.
Mm-hmm.
And Greinke's sitting right next to him. And he says, "You know, this guy, this guy, he's not even a real man. Like he has cats. And Grinky's like, what? And he's like, yeah, I can't trust a guy who has cats. And Grinky goes, oh yeah, you can't trust anybody with cats. And he's like, and the coach is like, I've got 2 dogs. They're so great. They're basically like my favorite thing when I get home is like, oh, awesome, my dogs will be waiting for me. And so he turns to Grinky and he goes, do you have a dog? He goes, no, I have a cat.
Oh no.
And so because of these reasons, I went on a total deep dive with that guy. And there are a million different crazy stories about this guy, to the point where like people are doing long form like essays on him on YouTube. And I watched like 5 of them because there's so many different stories. It's like gotten to a point where like, you know how with Mike Tyson, like if you hear a this is a Bill Simmons thing, not me.
Mm-hmm.
Bill Simmons came up with this, but he's like, there's a certain point in Mike Tyson's life where if you heard a story that involved Mike Tyson, you would just straight up believe it because Tyson was doing some crazy stuff.
He had a bit of a reputation that you would be like, yeah, that adds up. Sure.
Right. And so with Grenke, one of the essays is a guy parsing out what's real and what's fake because it all sounds real because it's Zach Greinke. And so people are like telling stories, and it's so fun. It was such a fun deep dive because baseball's about to start up and spring training starts on Friday. And like, it's just so fun. Like it made me really like look forward to the baseball season because, as you know, I'm a huge baseball fan.
He liked the ball.
I do.
Oh, you'll like something in the Dinger Zone. That's all I'll tell you there. That's a little teaser for you, my friend. But
I've got one also.
Good.
Yeah,
I got some good. Like, I don't know about you. I had some pitches. I wrote some I'm like, this is kind of what I want to see them into.
Oh, for me, it's just like, it was about getting them together and talking about the experience. Like, it wasn't about
oh no, I constructed new projects for people.
Oh, that's good. No, that's awesome. That means you did a bit of work.
I was like, man, what would I? And like, it took a couple to kind of figure out exactly where I wanted it to go, and who really I would like to see, instead of like the names that you would just assume. It was like, oh, I would like this legendary person, this legendary. That's all fine and good, but would that actually be a thing that could possibly happen? Yeah,
right.
Not usually. And now some of mine are not things that will happen or could possibly happen, but it'd be fun if they did.
Right.
Let me look up what our movie next week is, because I got to write that down in the notes.
Oh, right, because we're still on the Huy Quan.
Yeah,
is it? What is it?
I don't remember.
I thought it was Everything Everywhere.
No. Since we've already done that, there's no reason for that. It's called Breathing Fire.
Ah, there you go. Okay, let me write that down.
It is on Prime.
I gotta write that down.
I gotta scroll.
I gotta tell you, this week I looked around a little bit to see what everybody else was saying about the movie last week.
Mm-hmm.
Love Hurts, and basically we said exactly what everyone else has been saying. Because I wanted to see what Chen thought, because Chen is a huge Huy Quan fan.
Yeah.
And he's like, this is so disappointing. This movie is so disappointing for me. And I was like, I'm there with you, buddy. I know it. Breathing Fire.
From 1990.
Wow, really?
Mm-hmm.
So he's still a kid. Somewhat. I mean, he's probably 16, 17.
Michael, a Vietnam vet with 2 kids, pulls off a bank heist with his gang, which includes the bank's manager. To ensure the loyalty of everyone involved, Mike makes a special set of keys so that the hiding place for the loot can only be opened if all members are present. The bank manager, however, gets cold feet and tries to back out.
Oh, boy.
Starring Huy Quan, Bolo Young,
Oh, wow.
Jeremy Trimble and a whole bunch of other people you've probably never heard of.
That's cool. That sounds like not well trod upon ground.
No, I don't.
Like this week's movie.
Bolo Young though looks like he's on the he's the when you type it in there and everything, he's on the poster, so to speak.
Really?
Yeah. Well, you put all those muscles up there, you throw Huy Quan on there, and they're gonna be like, "What the hell is this?"
Well, that I'm definitely getting that feeling right now. Also, the other deep dive I did for YouTube this week. I just happened upon an interview with this guy who was in the CIA, John Curacao, and he dealt with Afghanistan and Iraq and Iran and all that stuff, and he was present like 2 months before 9/11 happened, and he was in the room with a guy who was like, something really bad's going to happen, but we don't know where, like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And he eventually becomes the guy who outs the waterboarding and torture that's happening. And he's the one who tells the times. And it's just like he's talking about his like everything that he had to go through after that happened, because they tried to set him up on espionage charges. He's like, I was talking to the New York Times. That's not espionage.
Yeah.
That's not me being a traitor. And the people who were involved with all that, they really tried to go after him. Like they tried really hard, and he ended up only getting about 2 years. And so the reason why he was doing the rounds is that he has this book out called Doing Time Like a Spy. And it's about his time in prison and like how he dealt with it. And I just downloaded his book, so I'm looking forward to listening to that. If it reads the same way he speaks, because he speaks so matter of factly, like he'll be talking about something the same way that I was talking about watching YouTube this week.
Yeah,
and he is somebody who you can tell is just crazy smart, and he says things like
indubitably.
Well, he says things like when you're in the CIA, you want all your assets to be at least sociopaths, because they understand, like, oh, well, the CIA couldn't do this without me, like stuff like that.
Yeah. That's how I try to approach all the jobs. It's like, listen, you wouldn't be able to do any of this if I wasn't here.
Right, exactly.
True or not, it's what I'm going to say. Yeah, old Captain America, boy.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. It wasn't terrible. It just wasn't good.
That's what I keep hearing. I keep hearing it's just a very middle of the road movie.
If you saw it on Disney Plus, you'd be like, yeah, that seems about right.
It seems like a very good Saturday afternoon movie, like on your couch.
I just need to fill some time. It's a little bit raining out. We can't do nothing. Oh man, Captain America in the Brave New World's there. That's a good way to kill 2 hours. And Harrison Ford looks cool. Like, it's the Red Hulk looks pretty awesome. I mean, it may be the best the Hulk's ever kind of looked, as far as like, your animation and all that kind of good stuff. Looks great.
Yeah, everybody keeps saying it.
Cool.
Everybody keeps saying that.
Fight's cool. Got the big kind of Hulk clap and everything that puts that sonic boom kind of deal out. I like that.
That is cool.
Neat little stuff. But at the end of the day, you're just like, I don't care about any of this, though.
Right. It's kind of the problem. It's the problem they keep running into, man.
I don't care about none of these people. Wish I did.
I'm wondering if Fantastic Four bombs.
It's going to be a tough one, because it feels like that's at least a bit of a reset. I could be wrong, but then again, that's me being also somebody who's hype on the FF, so I can't be trusted.
I mean, if the Fantastic Four bombs, because the machine is the machine, and the machine, I'm sure, goes past Fantastic Four.
Oh, yeah.
But let's say Fantastic Four bombs. Does that that means that basically the rest of the things that Marvel has up and coming, do they sit on that? Do they release it anyway just to Disney Plus? Like, what do they do?
It's a tough one. Thunderbolts comes out first, though, yeah?
Yes.
So,
yeah, that's next month.
So at least we'll have that to kill out of the way. Like, it kind of sucks ass because it's like between Brave New World and that, it's just like you're putting more and more nails in a coffin before we can try to really restart something else new. You're like, shit, bro. You keep smashing people, they're not going to go to the FF when it's time. If they go into Thunderbolts and they're just like, my God, this is overwrought. We are so tired of this, and they quit. You could be damning your own, future stuff. And I think, well, frankly, Marvel's been doing that for some time now.
Yeah, it's true. Although I do have to say, they are Daredevil. I made a mistake. Thunderbolts doesn't come out next month. Daredevil comes out next month.
Now I'm looking forward to that, but that's a different beast. I don't think of that like I think of the movies or anything else. I don't even think of that like I think of the Disney Plus shows because it's Daredevil. It's different. And it feels like, at least according to that trailer, it looks like they're doing that the right way.
The problem with Thunderbolts is that they've already done it with Guardians of the Galaxy, right? Like, oh, we're a bunch of losers.
Yeah.
Like, but we have to make this thing happen. They've already done that.
But now you have people with no superhero powers, and it's like, well, shit.
Yeah. It's rough, man. And it's kind of difficult to think past that. Like, because they keep, it's the thing that I keep saying, like, just make a movie, man. Like, stop trying to, like, oh, and here's the next thing. Like, stop doing that. Just make a movie. And there's no way Thunderbolts is that. Like, Thunderbolts definitely is going to have, like, oh, and here's what's coming up next, like that kind of thing. Like, even in Brave New World, I don't want to put out spoilers, but there's that, the tie-in with, what is that movie that came out like 3 years ago? That everyone just wanted to forget about.
The Eternals.
The Eternals.
Yeah.
The tie-in, the tie-in with the Eternals, like that's a neat way to get going with that stuff. Mm-hmm. But to tie it to the Eternals is probably a very bad idea.
It's one of those, when it comes on screen, you're like, oh yeah, that is a thing that's been out there forever that we've just pretended doesn't exist for quite some time. You're right. What did happen to that? Oh, nothing, essentially nothing at the end of the day. And they just go, all right, listen, animatium. And they're like, is that what you got? Is that all you got for me? An element? Okay, cool. I guess.
Well, it had to come from somewhere.
It's fair.
But man alive, like that seems like a bad idea. It's kind of like you can feel how, like, slapping their foreheads the people at Marvel movies are, or Marvel Studios are, that the way that Peter Parker gets the symbiote in the comic books, because they're like, well, we can't do that. So we can't, that isn't the way we're going to be able to bring Venom into this. We've got to figure out a different way to do it. And it feels kind of the same to me. Like a couple of years from now, you're going to be really upset that you tied all of that into this.
Yeah, if you just decided to make a good film and then use your button to tie your shit in. Have that be the thing that ties it in, but have the rest of your stuff be standalone instead of having everything build up to that moment, because ultimately, and it's so sad to say this, but at the end of the day with Marvel movies, you're there for the post-credits.
You are,
because we're like, well, where are we going next? It's like,
but that's kind of the problem, right? Is that, like, you don't want to feel like that. You want to feel like, oh man, this is the movie I've been looking so forward to. That hasn't been the case for Marvel movies since Guardians 3 for me.
Yeah, sounds about right. Yeah, you need to have that kind of, like, again, you're right, that I'm excited for this movie, and then a bonus is how that, interacts with all the other stuff. But I want the movie. That's what I'm looking for to begin with. That's the beginning, middle, and end of it, really. but not in their eyes. No, sir. Oh, you know what I got to see next week, man? Or technically, I'm going to go see it probably tomorrow or maybe Tuesday. But Paddington in Peru.
I've heard that it's the weakest of the three Paddingtons.
Listen,
but it's still really
even
good.
if it's the weakest of the three movies, it's still probably twice as good as most movies out there.
Man, if you were to tell me, listen, Paddington 2 is one of the best movies you're going to see in years, I would have been like, you are insane. I don't like the Paddington character. I don't like making a long form movie out of a children's book is always a bad idea.
Yeah.
But my God, that Paddington 2 is such an amazing movie.
Yeah, even if it's half as good as Paddington 2, I'll still be fine with it. It's like, you know what? You've done better than most things, because I've been walking out of some movie theaters just going, what the hell did I just watch?
Man, it's kind of the reason why I'm like, man, we got to go to the movie theater, because the experience has gotten better because I found a much better theater to go to. However, it's the experience of watching the movie, because it's like, man, now I'm trapped in here.
Yeah. So I went to see Love Eye, or no, wait, I did see that one, but that's not the one that I was going to. The Monkey, the new the new movie from
Oz Perkins.
Osgood Perkins. RPX Theater, so it's the nicer theater. You know, it's got the big surround system and all this kind of good stuff. The seats that, butt kicker seats and all this mess. I am sitting fourth row, so pretty close, but it's whatever. But even then, and I got some footage of it because I'm going to use it later on for a thing. But the seats were just disgusting. They're molting. They're falling apart. They're just like, it's shredding in the fourth row. How often are people even sitting in this row? You know what I'm saying?
That's no good.
But it is just like, it was, how are they this bad? It's mind-boggling. They just choose cheap quality materials and stuff, and they're like, that'll be fine. And then 2 years later, it just looks like, people are putting cigarettes out on it. They're not, but that's what it looks like.
Yeah. No, I know what you mean. It's the thing that's really bringing this country down, quite honestly.
Cheap vinyl.
It's just, let's do everything the cheapest way possible. Let's have as little services as we possibly can. That way, our stock, our shareholders will be able to squeeze a little more out of
just a
this.
touch. Yeah.
It sucks. It's awful. I think I've told you this story already, but it's going to the PBS studio here in Atlanta and seeing just how beautiful their studio space is. And I didn't get it because I was like, I've been to every giant studio here in Atlanta, and this is the nicest one. Why is this one the nicest one? And my boss pulled me aside and he's like, because their whole thing isn't about profit. Like their whole thing is just to make as good a thing as they can. And I was like, oh, right. Right. Like all of their instruments were amazing and well kept. The space itself wasn't made with the cheapest materials possible. And they have I want to say it's like 4 different sound studios, or not sound studios.
Stages.
Thank you. 4 different stages. And it's just amazing. It's a really great complex. And it kind of opened my eyes where I was like, for years I've always thought of this as like the also ran, but that's not the case at all.
Oh, those poor fools over there and their donor money and public funds and all this other bullcrap, but they'll be fine. What the hell? Why is it nice over here?
Well, the other part to this is that the people who work there don't make anything. Like as a matter of fact, they were kind of, some of the guys were getting chippy because we, while we're in their space, they're like, you guys you are overpaid and you are underqualified to be here. Like, we were hearing stuff like that.
Don't you touch that dolly track. Don't you dare, you son of a bitch.
Right.
How dare you? We work for nothing over here because we love our jobs. So like, okay, that's nice.
They literally had a Canadian arm in the studio. I was like, you guys just have an arm? A boom arm? They're like, oh, yeah. Yeah, we need it for blah, 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 blah.
All right. The 80s, a different time. Time with no internet, no cell phones, and yet Joey Pants still didn't have hair. Welcome to Half-Ass Movie Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Half-Ass Movie Podcast, a show where we put together a half-ass theme as an excuse to watch movies. My name is Adam Portress, and joining me today, he too smells like gym class, Sweet Sean's a Kovacs from the internet.
I used to when I was a teen.
Well, you got to shower every now and then.
You got to shower every day, I learned.
Oh, hold on. Let me get a piece of paper. Let me write that down. Every day. This might change things for me. I don't know. We'll see.
I even showered every day during lockdown.
Man, you're really on this cleanliness game, man. We were all just kind of like, listen, it'll be 3 days. Who cares? Where am I going? From the couch to the to the kitchen and back? Okay, great. No shower today. Bruce Leslie, though, is taking a big giant bath. He's got a lot of flooding in this area. That's why he couldn't make it onto the show this week. So we hope Bruce has his dinghy together there and can paddle out of that bad boy. No bueno.
That's got to be a first, right? That's a first for us, calling out due to natural disaster.
I think so. Yeah,
I think it is. I think it's a first on this show.
Yeah, we had the COVID once. That's a close second, but that's more disease than the other one. But yeah, not too shabby. But we must continue on with February and our song of Huy Quan, a ride through one of cinema's greatest stories with The Goonies from 1985. By the way, I am very proud of us. I think we're all saying Huy Quan quite well now.
Oh, nice.
It seems to be flowing through. You know, it's one of those things, like I said, I always chalk it up to this one. I say, if we can figure out Chiwetel Ejiofor, we can do anything. We just have to, you just got to say it enough times for it to really work. Huy Quan, it just kind of rolls off the tongue now just because. So I want to thank him for this month just to, get me used to saying that name over and over again. It's nice.
Yeah, it is. It's one of those things, too, where it makes me feel smarter, even though I had nothing to do with it.
Oh, yeah. Being white and stuff, you just like, this makes me feel like a little international. If I can roll off a little foreign name that doesn't sound too US of A, makes you feel like you're special, especially if you're white. You're just like, whoo, look at me. I'm progressive. Awful. But do us a favor, everybody. If you haven't, subscribe to us over there on the YouTubes and stuff, man. Throw us a like and subscribe. We want you to leave a comment for your mom. Those will be read on next week's show. We got a couple of mom comments this week. So strap in, Sean. Dear Mom, as you heard, the guys at HMP send you their best. They'll be thrilled to know that their review of you'll be thrilled to know that their review of Temple of Doom. Oh, I'm sorry. I need to read this correctly. They'll be thrilled to know that their review of the Temple of Doom brought you out of the coma. That's not bad.
Hey.
But now as I sit with you in the suicide ward, I wonder if playing Love Hurts review was really the best thing. Maybe jumping from his first movie to his last movie was too abrupt for you. We should have transitioned you slowly after waking you up. Maybe the Goonies or reruns of Head of the Class. Although you will be sad to know that the fat guy in that show turned out to be a little bit of what Grandpa called... Well, I don't think YouTube will actually let me say that. Anyway, I need to go buy a new toaster. I'm hungry, and you waterlogged the only one. I tried putting rice in it, but it didn't work. Asian kid. Maybe next week will be better. Love as always, Dr. Clayton Forrester.
That's great. That's great.
Man, the epic of Dr. Clayton Forrester has been quite a big one in this chunk of HMP, and
I kind of can't wait to hear chapter 3.
Wow. We got our good buddy Matthew writes in, "Hey Mom, I cried so much over you when I was watching the Smallville episode where Clark discovered that he never forgot his mother's name. And today I laughed so hard thanks to this idea from Bruce, which I really do like. And Sean's insistence is that it's great. It's great to know that I can still laugh while thinking of you. I say give Huy Quan the lead in more classic romantic comedy because he's the type of guy that I just want to see happy." And that's from Matthew.
Nice.
Dr. Disco writes in for his mother. He says, "Dear mother, I'm so sorry for springing the news on you, but I need you to listen." Oh boy. I know any anger you feel towards me is really your own self-hatred for your part in James's death. Your belief that your own happiness or being forgiven will diminish the memory of him. You must forgive yourself and know that I already have. Little Kikui asked if you were dead, and he never had met his grandma. So assumed, I guess so. I assumed he assumed that you were dead. Don't be dead anymore. Come back to your family and meet your grandson. He has James's eyes, and I can't get him to let go of them. It really can't be safe to let a child hold those. That comes from Dr. Disco. Dr. Disco, that went in a really weird place there at the end.
Don't be dead anymore. That's if you could conjure that.
We've been following a couple moms' tales here with this one, and that one is like she faked her death. But because James is the grandson, and like she needs to meet James, James is dead. She needs to meet the other grandson that has James' eyes. That's what it is. So many levels to these stories. It's hard to keep up. So come back next week for the continuing of Dr. Disco. We got one more here. This one comes to us from Alex. Alex writes, "Hey, Mom. It's hard to believe it's been 11 years. I miss you every day. I remember you the way that you were before the stroke, before you became a vegetable. Good news, they never pressed charges for what happened to you the night that you quote-unquote died in your sleep. I keep the pillow next to your ashes. Love and miss you, Bobby. Hope it was painless. Forever your son, Alex."
The pillow next to your ashes.
Well, you too can leave a comment for your mom over on YouTube. While you're there, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, turn on all those notifications, as I am dropping not only this podcast, but tons of other reviews. I got 2 movie reviews talking about Captain America Brave New World, and I saw an early screening of the new Osgood Perkins movie, The Monkey. So I got that up there. I got like 2 comedy bits that I kind of put up, little short fun things and stuff like that. So we got a lot of awesome content over there for you guys on the YouTube. I'm working hard on that, so I hope you appreciate that, and appreciate you guys. And if you can't do that, just head on over to patreon.com/HMP. Get yourself pre-show, post-show, Dinger Zone. This week's Dinger Zone, because we're talking about the Goonies here and the reuniting of all these people that they did around Huy Quan getting his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. We said, hey, what would it be like if we reunited some of those other folks? Check out that episode over there on patreon.com/HMP, or drop us an email at halfassmoviepod@gmail.com. Let's get into it. Here's the IMDb plotline for the Goonies. As we know, IMDb always 100% correct in everything they say and or do. A group of young misfits called the Goonies discover an ancient map and set out an adventure to a legendary pirate's long-lost treasure. Yeah, that is correct.
That's pretty solid.
Pretty correct, pretty concise. But let's see what Nick Reganus has to say on this. He wrote a little thing for IMDb. And I'm reading this mostly because I did not realize that this was the name of this town when this starts. Goondocks, Oregon. Apparently that's the name of this town. Goondocks or something like that. Goondocks, Oregon. To make way for a new golf course, the entire community of the peaceful coastal town faces imminent foreclosure. But the game isn't over until the ugly fat lady sings. When a band of local childhood friends calling themselves the Goonies stumble upon an old map, secret clues leading to the fabled treasure of the notorious pirate, One-Eyed Willie, set in motion a wild mission to save their homes. With the criminal Fredatelli family hot on their trail, a frantic race against time begins. Faced with Willie's complex booby traps, will the Goonies prove their mantle? But first things first, is the mythical treasure even real? Boy, Nick Regas over here is like, he's wanting to get on Chris Columbus's level over here, man.
It's too much.
It is too much. Speaking of writing, though, this is written by Christopher Columbus from a story by Steven Spielberg, directed by Richard Donner, who, of course, did Superman, Lethal Weapon movies, Scrooge, The Omen, Maverick, Assassins. People slept on Dick Donner, man. That guy had a wild and varied career.
He did.
Starring Sean Astin, Josh Brolin, Corey Feldman, Jeff Cohen, Cary Green, Martha Plimpton, Robert Davi, Joe Pantoliano, Ann Ramsey, John Mathuzak, and Huy Quan, our focus of this month and everything. Before we get started, I do have one of these, an email.
Return the sender. Bale's here.
Oh my. Hey, you guys. He wrote that. He said I should do it in the voice of Chunk. Wanted to write in and tell you how excited I am that you're talking about The Goonies. This remains one of my favorite movies of all time, not because it's a great movie, but it came out at a time when I needed a movie like it. I was a young teen when the movie came out, and it had everything I could ever ask for in a story at the time. I was young, so I was not looking for anything too deep. I had friendships and adventure that got me to the core, and it also has had a young crush for the older girl that I fully understood. My best friend's sister was 2 years older than us, and I was smitten with her. I get that. I've easily watched this movie 500 plus times in my life, most before the end of the 80s. I was really excited to watch this movie with my own 3 girls when they were old enough to watch. Once they got to just that preteen age at 8 to 12, we sat down to watch. Nothing. Didn't seem to care one bit. So I don't know if it was a difference for the 80s to the mid 2000s, or I hyped it up maybe too much for the girls and they just don't get it. So I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say on this one. Always a fan. That is from Noah of the Dark Woods and the How We Sees It podcast. And as always, you can email us at halfassmoviepodcast@gmail.com. Closing up the mailbag.
Bale's here.
halfassmoviepod@gmail.com. Sean, how long has it been since you've seen The Goonies, man?
Probably 2 years. It hasn't been long.
Okay, so a good revisit for you. So that's not too shabby. I'll say that I don't know when the last time was for me. It was probably a couple years ago when it came out on Blu-ray and everything. So I got the big kind of little box set that came with like a Goonies game that you never play and all that kind of fun bullcrap. Right. But let me tell you something. Putting this sucker on was like cuddling up with a warm blanket. Like, right away.
That's what this movie is like for you.
Oh, yeah.
I see.
It is. This movie is so much fun. It's very indicative of it feels like growing up. That's what it does. It's like this group of kids and everything. While my group of friends wasn't like this, my group of friends was like that, you know? We didn't have, this weird, diverse cast of characters and everything, but we did have a couple of, just nerdy outsider kids and stuff who didn't have much to do. The internet wasn't a thing. You just rode your bike to, places in town unsupervised and all that kind of good stuff. It was just like, it is such a fantastic kind of time capsule before, the world that we know today.
It is a time capsule. I totally agree with you. I think that the understated thing about this movie is just how well it's shot. It's just so pretty. And when, we're living in a time where movies are ugly and they like, lighting is not a thing anymore that people seem to care about. And so when you see a movie like this, you're just like, wow, this is just beautiful.
The score hits you right away. So iconic and stuff that I think everybody probably goes like, oh, this is like either a John Williams or an Alan Silvestri score or something like that. And it's not. It's not one of the normal ones. But boy, have we captured that Steven Spielberg energy so much within the score. And I think that really pushes this whole movie along outside of the acting. And we'll get into, the acting of the movie and stuff like that. But I think the music is such a strong key in this movie to keep it propelled, to keep it going, to keep that adventure kind of fresh and always just, right around the corner there. Love it.
So this is, you're making it, maybe I'm just reading into this, but you make it sound like this is like one of your favorite movies of all time. Is that right?
I would it's in the contention. I'm not going to lie to you. While this movie was going on, I was thinking like, what are my Letterboxd top 5 again? Could I replace one of these with the Goonies? It's quite possible. It's probably not a movie I watch, a ton. But when I do, man, it is always a good time. I remember a couple years ago, we'll say, I forget exactly when, but probably 22. I want to see 2020 because that couldn't have been right. But whatever Goonies anniversary thing that they ended up doing at some point, we did a screening at our theater and everything. And retro screenings in our theater never really did super hot. But boy, oh boy, did people come in to see the Goonies. And it made me so happy. And like, I still think that this is one that, still resonates with people so many years later. And it still does for me. This feels like, I don't want to say a perfect movie because I do believe there are points in this that kind of dip and probably could be edited a little bit better, which is funny coming from Steven Spielberg's editor, in this movie kidding. And everything. So, but it's only a couple things. But I honestly, I think some of that stuff has to do with, their production and just being able to, kind of shoot. But that's more kind of third acty sort of stuff. But the Chris Columbus's writing is just so spot on and fantastic. It feels like kids. It feels like what Richard Donner's also let these kids do. It feels like a Robert Altman movie, dude. All these kids, everybody is talking over each other. Everybody is just talking. And the crazy part is something I really thought about this viewing is this movie is an ADR masterpiece when you think about it, because they're around so much crap all the time. Yeah.
And there is so much ADR in this movie.
And the majority of it is pretty damn good. Especially coming from kids. To have kids do ADR is tough as hell. And they all, like Huy Quan's stuff that he's saying that is clearly ADR stuff is delivered just as good as it was if he was on set. Just as good. It's kind of crazy how good. There's only a couple times where you're just like, oh, that was kind of added in. That was kind of added in. But for the most part, with all the water and waterfalls and all this kind of crap going on and everything, you couldn't get any decent sound out of that. So they're re-recording all of this stuff, and it sounds fantastic. It's crazy.
Yeah, it does sound good. Look, everything is expertly done with this movie, right? Like, it just feels like people who know what they're doing, who are good at their jobs, which is something that I find lacking in movies these days. There's not a whole lot of movies these days where I'm just like, wow, these folks are pros. Like, it doesn't feel that way to me often anymore. I want to get to my hot take with this movie.
Okay.
And it has nothing to do with the movie itself. It has to do with
Ghostbusters,
with the way that people describe this movie. On multiple occasions, I keep running across, because as I told you in the pre-show, like I keep looking, like I was looking for a different entry point to this movie than what you're used to seeing, right? And so the thing that I kept coming across is people kept calling this a cult movie.
No, sir.
This is in no way a cult movie. Steven Spielberg is your executive producer. Richard Donner is your director. Chris Columbus is your writer. There is nothing cult about this movie in any way.
Almost at the height of all of their careers, save for Chris Columbus, who would probably in like 3 years with, Home Alone or something like that, would finally, kick it or whatever. But everybody else pretty much top of the game. Shut the hell up. 19 million estimated budget, worldwide gross 64. So they was all right.
Yes,
not a cult film.
There is nothing about this movie that is a cult classic.
And that's 64 in 1983 dollars, everybody. Keep that in mind.
This is the like, I don't know how it keeps being described as one.
I think I know why. Because it feels like despite the grandeur of the third act and everything, this feels like a very small movie.
It does feel like a small movie, except when you realize how they're shooting it.
Oh yeah, well, exactly. But that's kind of the secret of it, isn't it? But
right.
This is a big giant kind of Spielberg production, but we're toning it down until you start kind of looking at the seams and stuff and go, oh shit, they actually know what they're really doing over here. This isn't just somebody kind of ape some Steven Spielberg style and stuff like this. This is that kind of, that ambulant entertainment thing that they've been going for a long time. And they knew how to tap into it in the 80s. That's for sure.
There's a couple of things that I don't know how they got the shot off, right? Like there's a couple of scenes where they're following the kids on the bikes. And I'm not sure how they got those. I know how they got most of them, but there's a few shots where I'm like, what are they using here? Because it's not a dolly track. It's not on a boom arm. And how are they following these kids? And I kind of realized that, they're also on a bike. They must also be on a bike. It's the only way they could have done it.
Yeah, I was shocked at all. There's a lot of little things like that where you're just like, what? Like when they're sliding down the big kind of water slide there and stuff, right. Watching it now, it's just going like, How in the hell did you shoot this well? Because it shouldn't work. It should look like crap, but it looks fantastic. It's super fun. The slide itself and all the crap around it is so well designed that it looks like some bull crap. But it also looks like a ride that you want to go on. And when it spits you out and drops you, like 10 feet into the big giant thing of water, what kid doesn't want to do that?
It's true. Dave Grusson is the composer for this movie, who I've never heard his name before. Do you know who that guy is?
No, I had to look that up. He has a couple just some credits that you would recognize a couple things, but nothing that really kind of sticks out and makes you go like, oh, wow. But no, this is kind of like, I would say his biggest and best thing.
Well, I mean, he does he also is he worked on Tootsie. I mean, that's a pretty huge soundtrack. The Firm, the Fabulous Baker Boys,
good stuff, but nothing that you'd be like, oh yeah, that soundtrack sure still sticks out. Not like this one does. This one again, when we're at the beginning, with the jailbreak and everything, like once that music starts hitting, boy, you're pushed into gear. It's set, like it's ready to go here, man. Joey Pants is throwing around the gasoline. You're just like, oh shit, this movie's on. So much fun.
That is the other thing that I have to say about this movie is that the secret sauce to this movie, like the thing that is really solid about this movie is the Joey Pants and
Robert
Davi are so good in this movie. They are kind of like the secret weapon to this movie, because you believe that these guys are actual criminals who would have no problem hurting kids, but they are also bumbling at the same time. I think that works really well, and I think that Robert Davi from this point forward will never do anything like this again, where like you kind of like him in this movie as one of the Fratelli boys, but like after this movie you're like, oh, I can't stand this dude and I hate everything he's in. Although he's also in Die Hard, and he's pretty great in Die Hard also for the 2 minutes he's in that movie for.
I was in junior high, asshole.
Right, exactly.
I was so scared of Robert Davi as a kid in this movie because
because of the Fratellis.
Yeah, he was just like, he's just frightening, and like when he gets into like his crazy Italian singing and stuff like that, I don't know why as a kid that spooked the shit out of me. Like when Chunks sees him in the car and whatnot, explaining who, come on, Mister, the thing goes on, and he just starts singing in Italian. I don't know why that scared the crap out of me as a kid. I was like, no, I was Chunk at that very moment, dude. I was just like, you gotta go, run, get out of there. Did we ever find out who the guy was in the freezer? I always forget.
I couldn't tell you
exactly. That may be another thing, like the octopus that they talk about, right, where little Data goes, "Hey, yeah, the octopus was a big thing," which apparently was a thing that they shot but didn't get finished or whatever, which is probably a better thing, I would guess.
There's also a scene that they shot, which is their apes get loose and start driving around cars.
What now?
Yeah, and they cut that scene too.
Well, this movie just went down a notch in my book. We could have had car driving monkeys. Well, no one told me about car driving monkeys. Jeez. All right, fine. So
as I told you in the pre-show, I wanted to see what Siskel and Ebert said about this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And Gene thought it took forever to get to the story, and he actually gives the viewer advice on how to see it, where he's like, hey, just walk into the picture, as he calls it. Just walk into the picture half an hour late.
What are you talking about? Like that? Okay.
He says it takes forever to ramp up, but he did give it a thumbs up. And then Ebert, he found it hard to understand the dialogue because the kids talk over each other.
Mm-hmm.
But he also agrees with Gene that for about the first half hour, but the movie gets better. And then he says that the movie turns into as he put it, a young people's version of Indiana Jones. And he also gave the movie a thumbs up. But they both agree it takes forever to get to the story. And I'm going to tell you something. They're not wrong.
Yes and no. Here's the thing. And one thing that I kind of really got off of this viewing and everything that I never quite put together before, but like kind of just again analyzing it and stuff for the show. And I'm just going like, why do I like this movie? And the beginning of this movie is the reason why. It's like, this is a hangout movie. You are hanging out with these people. You are part of that friend group that's going along. You don't have any input with the group, but you are within that group itself. That's what's kind of fun about it, is that you were hanging out with these kids. And I don't know about you. I knew archetypes like everybody in these groups. Like, it was just a thing. Everybody had, like, this nerdy friend. You got your fat kid friend. You got your, smart nerdy kid friend. Other cool stuff that I didn't notice, like all of Sean Astin's speech impediment stuff.
Yep.
I never caught it, like, especially the fillet joke at the beginning. I was like, whoa, okay, that's right. That's a PG movie, and we're making fellatio jokes. I'm like, that's wild. And again, a great time when you could do, where children could do nice light cursing in films, and it was still a PG film. God, I love it.
It is pretty great for that reason.
When you can have a little kid go, shit. It's like, oh, that's great.
And also kids in peril, like actual honest to God peril instead of what it is now.
Mm-hmm.
Like think of little Princess Leia in the Kenobi show.
Yeah.
Where not for a second do you believe that little girl is in peril. I didn't think for a single second. There's pirates chasing after her, and she bends back a branch to hit one in the face.
But
Pathetic.
Here we've got actual scumbags that look like they would kill a child.
Absolutely they would, and it's great. Also, Sean Astin, so cute. Such a cute little boy in this movie. I forget how adorable he is until I start watching it again, and I'm like, that might be the cutest boy in the world.
He is so good in this movie.
Yeah.
It is kind of astounding when he's going through the story of One-Eyed Willie and everything, just kind of like staring into the mid-distance there, the camera just close up on his face, and he is telling this story so well. You're seeing it in your mind's eye and everything, and we are just sitting on this kid. We're not cutting. We are just sitting there, and everything is on this 10-year-old kid's shoulders, and he's fucking handling it. It's so good.
He is really good in it too.
Speaking of handling it, man, Corey Feldman's another one that's just like, this little bastard just oozes so much little charisma coming out of his tiny little body. It's disgusting. He's so good. He walks in and owns the whole scene immediately. But he's so good in his approach. He feels like he's a naturalistic acting of a kid, but he's got a little something special extra in there that a normal natural kid wouldn't do. It's that little Feldman, special feature that he's adding in there. And something about it, this may be my favorite Feldman performance too.
It's pretty great, man. It's pretty great. Although I don't know what happens to him. Well, if he is to be believed, something bad happens to him when he turns into a teenager. But this is basically the last one, right? It's this or the vampire movie, Lost Boys, that where he's still good in the movie.
Yeah.
It's like the last two good performances by him. Anything after that, it's like, oh, he's putting on Zoolander face.
Oh, so you didn't see Happy Birthday? What's it called? Shit, he did some sort of birthday movie a couple years ago. We saw it in the back of Bizart. Amazing, and not in the way you want it to be amazing.
Well, that's what I mean, right? So, his acting kind of falls off a cliff once he becomes self-aware of himself.
Yeah.
But these movies here, I forget how good a kid actor he was, especially since he's got kind of a froggy voice, which I forget about. And so his voice is very specific.
But he also comes in, that's the crazy part, because like he comes in so self-assured that it's just like, where does this small kid get the cojones to act like this? It's kind of wild how he really just sort of takes control. And I could between like him and Sean Astin, like all of the kids, you can sit there and just go, man, they really hit everyone's pretty good, save for our main girl. What's her name? Andy. Yeah. Andy's not great, but that's also kind of part of the character, I think. I think part of it's the character, part of it's the actor.
I will not have this besmirching of Andy on my own podcast.
Listen, I think she's fine, but there's some corny times where I'm just like, Andy, what are you doing? What are you doing?
When I was because I saw this movie in the movie theater when I was a kid, and I saw it with my buddy Scotty Salonen, and we were watching the movie, and I can remember very distinctly thinking, well, that's the prettiest girl I've ever seen in my life at the time. And for years, I was like, well, is anyone cuter than that girl? Now when I watch the movie, I'm like, well, she is literally like a child in this movie. But at the time, she affected me in many ways. And Martha Plimpton, not on the radar at all. However, as an adult, Martha Plimpton all day. Martha Plimpton is amazing in this movie.
She's really good. I liked her when I was younger. I thought she was doing something like, I thought her character was kind of neat and different than you saw a lot of girls kind of, in movies and stuff like this. Right. But you're right. Older, growing up and more stuff like that. Martha Plimpton kind of rules in this movie.
She's amazing. And the other thing with her is that she's basically amazing in everything I've seen her in. I haven't seen all of her movies, but like, if you throw her in a comedy or in a comedic role in a serious movie, she's going to kill it, and she brings it every time.
Oh yeah.
She's on a show called Raising Hope, where she is absolutely killer. She's the funniest thing about the show. She's the funniest thing about the show, and everybody around her is also funny, but she is the funniest thing about it. And so now looking backwards and seeing her throughout her career, it's like, oh, she's really been a killer the entire time. It's just that I'm just noticing it now.
Yeah. Jeff Cohen is as Chunk. Again, this is another kid that like probably shouldn't be this damn good at acting, but is
Agreed.
A lot better than I think anybody remembers Chunk. Everybody goes like, oh yeah, it's a funny guy. No. This kid's really fucking acting, and it's so good how like his timing and stuff, where he's just where he moves, how they've kind of blocked him out and stuff like that. It works so well.
Hey, vamp for a second, okay?
I still, the funniest thing to me is the kind of opening when he's doing the truffle shuffle and everything. And if ever you've been a fat kid, somebody's attempted to at least make you do the truffle shuffle once or twice. But I love the fact that we've got the big giant Rube Goldberg machine just to open up the gate on the lawn there and everything. It's so stupid. It feels like Steven Spielberg meets Tim Burton there and everything. Just like, hey, there's no real reason to have this, but we think it's cool. And the 80s, I guess, were replete with Rube Goldberg machines and things like that. But really, when you look at it, you're just like, Chunk, couldn't you have just pushed that gate right open? I don't know why. And then how did Feldman get in? Because no one answers that question. How did he get in here? Doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But again, one of the once he kind of comes in, and of course Chunk busting the statue of David and stuff. I like how Mom not only has a statue of David, but has declared it to her children that it is her favorite thing. Please don't bust the statue of David. And if you do, make sure you don't snap his hog off. Unbelievable, but yet still believable at the exact same time. But again, just having Chunk in there and his kind of relationship with Sloth. And again, I will go back and I'll talk about Sloth here for just a second.
Well, hold on, because I want to talk about the relationship. I want to talk about the relationship between Chunk and Sloth for this very reason. They were kind of like mid about the movie, Siskel and Ebert. But Siskel brings up, he's like, listen, when they get to the part where Chunk and Sloth are friends, they've got me. This movie totally has me. He's like, the third act of this movie is one of the best third acts. And it's because you care so much about Chunk and Sloth and you want to see these people win. And it was like, Gene's telling us who Gene is without meaning to tell us who Gene is. It's this really great moment on the show. And you see Roger like across from him kind of smirking a little bit because Ebert's like, yeah, I was Chunk. I know.
they do such a good job with kind of teasing Sloth and just great classic kind of filmmaking, filming him in with that heavy backlight and whatnot. And again, again, when I was a kid watching this movie, again, I was super scaredy cat kid, so I was little when I watched this. I showed it at daycare a whole bunch and everything. Sloth scared the piss out of me. I was very much Chunk in that exact same situation, going, no, dear God, no. But it's so good.
I think that is the Spielberg influence of this movie, because Spielberg is very, very good at making something seem scary when you first see it, and then turning it around. Like think of E.T. here. Like E.T., when you first see E.T. when you're a little kid, E.T. isn't cute. E.T. is scary, and then they turn that on a dime, and I gotta think that he had a bit he had some input in the pacing of that, and in learning who these people are. You know,
it had to be, but it's a great, you know, transition that they go through, that they put him through, because he sees him at first and then he's closer to him, and then the whole Baby Ruth thing, which does make you start to question things about Chunk, that you were looking for other food and stuff like that, but you had a Baby Ruth in your pocket. Okay. Listen, as a fatty, I'm gonna tell you, you ain't forget about that Baby Ruth in your pocket. But it's super fun to see, and then just the demonstration then that Sloth is this gigantic beast of a man and can just pull his chains out at any time, really, to kind of free himself, and giving that character then the agency to do stuff and not have him be that kind of monster in the dungeon and everything. Having the monster have agency is pretty cool and not often seen.
Right. And to have that turn, the face turn that he does, it's kind of magical the way they pull it off. As I was telling you in the pre-show, one of the things that I did was I kind of did a little bit of a deep dive on this movie because this movie is so well trodden over by people like us. We have a podcast, but we're also kind of funny. So I wanted to be able to say something different about this movie that maybe somebody else hasn't.
And Ramsey is sexy, people. We've said it, okay? If that's what you wanted to come here and hear, there you go. We've said it. All right. Sean's over here saying Anne Ramsey's sexy. That's fair. Go ahead. Just let him know.
Well, you tell me. I've seen Throw Mama from the Train also.
Oh yeah.
She's got it going on.
Got something going on.
So one of the things that I looked up was that there's a local paper that's local to Astoria, Portland, where they shot this movie, and it's not in Astoria, but it's in the area. And so for its 10th or 15th or 20 or 25th anniversary, they talked to the locals who were there at the time when they were shooting the movie. And one of the things that they talk about is that John, I can't remember his last name right now, the football player who played Chunk, who played Sloth. Thank you, Machuzak. The guy was the John Wrangler. Like, this local was the John Wrangler, because he had he was a massive alcoholic, and so he would have to drive him from place to place so that he wouldn't hit anybody with his car and stuff like that, and taking him to strip clubs and stuff. And it's one of those things where you're like, yeah, that kind of pans out. That's kind of how that went. When you hear the kids from Goonies talk about working on the movie, they're like, he kind of smelled a little funny. It's like, yeah, I wonder what that was.
He smells like Jim Beam.
And so it's one of the stories where this guy, he literally, his job, he's paid hourly to just follow around John and be the John Wrangler for the movie.
Oh man, he did a bunch of TV spots and stuff after this. I'm surprised. I just kind of was like, well, let's see what his career is. He was in North Dallas 40, which makes sense because that's your football stuff and whatnot. So easy cast in there. But he was in a whole bunch of stuff. He was in an episode of Amen, for crying out loud. Amen and Miami Vice. I don't know too many people that have been on Amen, Miami Vice, and an episode of Superboy from 1989. So
holy shit, that means he got to meet Jack Kay.
And Perfect Strangers. This guy, he had all right. Now, he died in 89, so boy lived fast and loose. So he was, But, hey, what do You're sloth for the rest of eternity, and that ain't half bad. I forgot how good because I was waiting for it in this time, and I don't know why I didn't think that they would be smart enough and good enough to do this, because of course they are. But I'm watching the right eye or left eye, depending on how his left, our right, and it blinks. The eye blinks, and I was so happy to see that eye blink. It made me I was so excited. I was just like, oh, and it's probably going to be kind of, and like just as I had the thought, the eye blinks. I'm like, hot damn, woo, so good. I was so excited. It made me happy. And then to see with him rip this shirt and have the Superman under, because Richard Donner directed Superman, and the little theme. It's all owned by Warner Brothers, so everything is nice and copacetic. It's beautiful. It's
pretty amazing. And if you don't have Richard Donner directing this movie, there's no way that scene gets pulled off. There's just no way.
It'd be corny and stupid, but like there's something about it, and being able to have the actual cue and whatnot. So much fun. And I like how he points to the S and says sloth, because that's what he thinks it's for. That's so good. I love it.
Pretty great.
And again, the super cool stuff of showing, our swashbuckling movie that he's watching and everything. So then it certainly informs the big kind of pirate ship and stuff later on, gives him, a form of reference. So, because in our head, he's been, just locked up in this basement for, umpteen years. But if he's been watching television and stuff like that, he can feed things into his brain and give him some sort of, something to do and whatnot. So when Chunk says, hey, put on this hat, you're a pirate with me, then he can easily get into that. So much fun. And again, it is ripping on, the other brothers here and everything, and just smashing those guys around. Super fun to see. Come on.
Yeah, so good. Here's a quote from local fisherman Jim Furnish. This is a quote. Quote, Jim? All the local guys would be down at the Thunderbird Hotel and drink coffee. It was the only good hotel in town, so the important people were staying there. I remember the kids were real bratty. They were spoiled knotheads. They'd act up like kids and spill things. There was one old waitress there, and they exacerbated the hell out of her. Nobody gave a shit about those kids because they weren't famous. They were busy looking at James Brolin and John Astin and the famous people. Now that's all changed.
Some so salt.
Good. Yeah, man. Don't mess with Jim Furnish. He's a fisherman.
You know what? A bunch of these asshole Hollywood folk come up in here and just kind of ruining everything. I'll tell you that.
Well, your local South Carolina is showing. He would speak more like all the local guys be down at the Thunderbird Hotel and drink coffee. Like that's what he would sound like. This is one of those movies I don't like it. It's not in the hallowed halls of like my top 10 favorite movies of all time. I do like it. I do like this movie. Something doesn't connect with me the way that I see that it does with other people. And to be honest, I'm a little jealous of that, because I would love for the Goonies to be one of my favorite movies. It's very good. It's really well shot. The kids in it are great. And it does ramp up. Like the third act of this movie is the best part of this movie, which is the way it should be.
Yeah, we actually build to something, and it feels like, I don't know. I was almost going to say it feels like we've earned it. But here's the fun part of this movie that I felt like I kind of looked at this time. It's not a bad thing, not necessarily. But this movie just kind of happens. And I mean that in as much as the next step is always just around the corner. You don't have to work too awful hard for it. We can figure it out fairly simple. We're literally crashing into things and finding out, bips and bobs and clues and all that kind of stuff without even, we're literally just stumbling our way into, a perfect 10 landing and everything.
Like a bunch of kids would.
Yeah, I suppose so.
They start the journey, but they keep falling into trouble like over and over again.
But I also mean, just like, number one, the map will always have answers. The map will always have answers. You will not have read any of those answers prior to you getting into a particular situation, which is always fun. It's like, let's read the whole map, figure out all the things, and then we can kind of plan ahead. But no, we only read the map bits at a time. And again, I know these are all storytelling things and they need to be done in order for the movie to be fun and interesting and whatever.
Right.
But,
Right.
Sometimes you're looking at it, it just seems like, oh, and what do you know? This pathway absolutely leads to where we need to go. This path also absolutely leads to where we need to go. It's like an on rails video game. That's like, listen, we're not going to let you venture out into your own little path here. We're keeping you on this same little course. Just follow it on through. You see where the end is. Go towards the end. So it is like that. And so if you're willing to kind of throw all this sort of stuff away, it's fine. But they leave enough little good things like, Chunk's clumsiness and everything and knocking over, the water that then goes into the fireplace, which then lets them know that there's something else. So like, at least they're smart enough. And I feel like Spielberg producing makes sure that all of these things get checked, that every little bit feeds into another little bit, every little I would say even the beginning that, everybody claims is too slow and doesn't do all these things. They're setting up everything. They're still table setting and with all of those things, not only developing character, but developing things for those characters to do later on. That without that stuff that's setting up in the beginning, everything that feels like fluff work, once you get to those payoffs and stuff, that fluff work then, actually has some meaning and stuff like that. So I argue with the come in 30 minutes late onto this, like Ebert says, or Siskel says here and everything. But I do understand where they're coming from. I just don't agree.
Well, I think that if you are a fully formed adult man in your probably 40s when you're watching this movie, it probably feels a little slow to you. I totally understand.
Yeah, I mean, if you're brand new in 1985, I get it.
So this movie comes out in 1985, right?
Mm-hmm.
It is a murderer's row of movies, 1985, and because of that, The Goonies is the 7th highest grossing movie of 1985.
That's crazy.
It's insane to think about, right?
It's like this movie made $65 million in 1985 money is ridiculous. So when that's 8th place, damn.
I mean, of course, Back to the Future is number one.
Yeah, come on.
And no one is going to complain about that. Number 2 is Beverly Hills Cop.
Not a bad one.
I really like Beverly Hills Cop. I prefer the second one just because it's funnier, but Beverly Hills Cop
funnier. The action is bigger. Tony Scott makes that film.
True. Number 3, Rambo: First Blood Part 2. Whatever.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I get it. Number 4, Rocky 4. Back-to-back Stallones. Wow, crazy,
man.
Then number 5, a movie that doesn't exist anymore. Can you guess what the 5th most successful film at the box office in 1985 is? And I already gave you the clue. This is a movie no one ever speaks of.
Ishtar came out. No, I don't know.
Do you want me to give you the genre?
1985. Okay.
Sci-fi.
That's what I figured. Let's see. E.T.'s out in 82. No one's forgotten that. It's one of the greatest movies of all time. I don't know.
If I give you another hint, I think you'll get it.
Okay.
This movie stars Wilford Brimley.
Oh, Cocoon.
Right.
Oh, that's right. That is one you forget made a shitload of money.
Yeah.
That's
number
right.
5 that year. It beat out Goonies. That's how successful that movie was.
That's wild, man. There was like between like that and what's the one Close Encounter or Batteries Not Included? There was like a stretch of movies with old folk in them that did like a lot of business.
Yeah. 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 The other movie that beat out Goonies that year is Witness. Awesome movie. That very, very good. But Goonies is number 7. It seems impossible to me that a movie that no one speaks of these days, Cocoon, beat out the Goonies, which like you can buy Goonies t-shirts at Target.
Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy. I wouldn't suspect that, but
nuts to me. Just absolutely nuts.
Well, the Cocoon, I guess Cocoon-Con 2025 is canceled now.
Here's another quote by one of the locals in Astoria. The police cars came in the middle of the night on a car carrier. It was hysterical. They were all Hazard County Sheriff cars from the Dukes of Hazzard. They hired one of the paint shops in town to paint them. They tried to spend money in town.
Oh, heaven forbid they try to like you put a little bit of money back into your city's economy. How dare they?
No. I think they were saying that as a positive.
Oh, okay.
It might have just been my poor read on that.
I thought you were just being like, and you bunch of assholes made us do it. You're like, wait a minute.
No. I think they were saying that positively. This isn't good. Like that fisherman from the first one.
And not everybody has beef. Some people have good memories.
Right, exactly.
Not everything is Corey Feldman spitting my salad.
Right, exactly.
Which he was known to do in the late 80s, let's be honest.
Oof, man.
Let's talk about the man of the hour, Huy Quan. He's hot off of Raiders here and everything, or Temple of Doom, rather.
Temple of Doom.
And boy, oh boy, doesn't feel like he's missed a step here, does it?
No, I mean,
so
he's
good.
basically, he basically has the same sort of delivery that he has in Doom, but he's like, he also seems to get the assignment of like, oh, I need to keep talking. Oh, I need to be a little bit more frenetic than I was in Temple of Doom. And he's just so damn likable.
He feels like a real little kid. He just does. It's like, it doesn't feel like we're seeing, and all of these kids really doesn't feel like there's some sort of acting pretense there or whatever. It just feels like we're actually watching, kids at play and everything. And it absolutely works. When we get to, like, I love his dumb little inventions and stuff. Let me tell you, I wanted to be like all these kids at some point or other, because I wanted to have all the little gadgets and shit that Data did. That was so cool. Just the perfect thing of him, ziplining across from one house to the other with the Bond theme playing and everything. Once he crashes and it gets to the, it's just so good, and it makes you like, for what would normally be, probably the least popular kid and all that, it makes him one of the more interesting characters. He's got some cool little stuff here. He's got the slick shoes and all the little gadgets. I love the dumb teeth thing. It's ridiculous. But when it all comes together at the end, when he's seeing his dad and stuff, dude, if you're not rolling a tear, you're a piece of garbage. It's so good. It's just like my best invention ever. Come on, so good. And like all the parents actually, when they see their kids and stuff, and it was that great thing of the 80s where it's just like, yeah, you were a bunch of little buttholes that were out all night doing God knows what under the streets of the city and everything, but you know what, we're still gonna forgive you and pat you on the head and say, you dumbass kid, come on, it's the 80s. It's so good.
He also, I do have to say, what I can't tell with him, with Huy Quan in this movie is I can't tell if he is saying his lines naturally, or if it feels more like a read, but his accent gets in the way, and that is helping him. Like I couldn't figure that part out watching it this last time, where like, is he saved, much like Benedict Cumberbatch is saved a lot of the time by his English accent.
Mm-hmm.
Where you're like, oh, that could have been a better line read, but he's got that great British accent, so everyone's going to forgive him for that.
I think there's certainly a level of that in play, but at the same time, too, to me, that is also what makes it kind of realistic and ring true. Because
what I mean though is like Disney Channel, like kids on the Disney Channel and like those Nickelodeon shows, right? Mm-hmm. Like those kid actors, they overact all the time on those shows, and the shows are difficult to watch for adults because you're like, oh my god, these kids are just like,
Susie, I'm going to the mall.
Right, exactly. And so I'm wondering, and I couldn't tell. I mean, to be completely fair to the man, I could not tell if he was saved by his accent. Like I couldn't tell that. So I'm you know what? I love the man. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to say that it didn't have anything to do with it at all.
I don't think so.
I really couldn't tell.
When I'm watching this again, I'm trying to pick it apart and stuff for acting and whatnot, especially with like him. And he's just, and again, much like I had with Temple of Doom, I'm like, you know what? This kid's a better actor than I ever really gave him credit for.
Yeah.
He really is.
And Temple of Doom, man, he is the second best thing about that movie. I mean,
Yeah.
really is.
And he brings that kind of level of likableness here and everything. And the reason why I say that, I don't think any of it, I don't know, because he seems like he's doing some really great, it seems that way, improv-y kind of stuff on set. The way he's kind of moving and like within like a group shot and whatnot, if you just kind of eyeball and look at him, he's got some business that he's doing, or there's a part where like Sean Astin's like fucking with his hair. And it's just like, but it seems natural and normal, like what kids would do. But like, it almost seems like you do. Who directed that? Did you direct that? Is that a thing that just kind of happened? There's nice little bits and bobs like that in there that you're just like, again, all the stars are kind of aligning on this one. They just did in this film.
Yeah, they really did. There's a lot of things that had to work, and they did.
So as we ask in all of our programs here and everything, is Huy Quan doing it in this role? I think we answered that with a pretty affirmative yes.
Yeah, he is.
Just killing it in this one. If we had to recast, who would you do? I don't think you can. Anybody. So I am going to go the weird route here and say Gary Coleman. He's a small child. Should be about the right, age-ish. Right?
I not only am I recasting this with the actor who played Rerun on What's Happening.
Ooh.
He also is just Rerun. He's
just
not like
Rerun.
the actor. He's just doing Rerun.
Okay. All right. Listen, I'm gonna. So what? I don't know. Rerun could be the Feldman character though, if you think about it.
He could, but I also want the accent.
Oh well. Listen, it's your movie. You're casting it, so I'm not gonna,
it is my movie. Damn,
I'm not going to fight you. Y'all the main producer. Y'all the executive on this one, there, chum. Well, movies only come in two forms: art or fart. The Goonies, art or fart for you?
It's art, man. I mean, this movie is so pretty, and it looks like a proper movie. There aren't enough proper movies now. That's why people don't go to the movie theater anymore. It's because there ain't a movie where you're like, wow, that was a movie.
Yeah. I mean, what do you go for, like, excitement and other things? And there's so many times where we can see as good, if not better, crap on TV. Yeah. TV's getting, wild and crazy with their budgets and stuff like that. So, like, you need to do something to differentiate yourself. And if we're not doing that, and frankly, I don't think budget's the way that you fix that problem. I know Hollywood thinks otherwise, but good story and, everything might be the strongest key for all of that. But,
and get people who know what they're doing. Get people who know what they're doing. Don't, because somebody has like a really great TikTok, don't make them the director of your movie.
Yeah. That'd be a smart one. But like having Richard Donner be the guy who was behind this movie and everything, I think that gives it so much credibility because, he's coming off of The Omen and Superman and like Lady Hawk and all that kind of stuff. It's just, I don't know. And he would continue to go on and do so many other great things after that. I just think that he's one of those guys that doesn't get the name in some of those big kind of, 80s and 90s directors and stuff like that. I don't think he gets mentioned as often as he should.
Just because, his career is fairly spotty at the end, right? Like he had a really great run, but then towards the 90s, things just kind of like peter out. Yeah, whereas if he would have retired after, let's say, Lethal Weapon 3, right? If he would have retired after Lethal Weapon 3, he would have been fine.
Yeah, but Maverick's real good though. That's a great flick.
Look, man, you don't need to twist my arm. I love Maverick.
Conspiracy Theory, still not bad. Maybe not the best. Maybe not his best. But for normal folk, I think that's a decent movie. But maybe not Richard Donner.
I dislike that movie immensely.
I know why. I get it. No, no doubt there. But yeah, so it's art for me all day long with this. I'm not a huge Cyndi Lauper fan, but let me tell you, when that Cyndi Lauper song comes up again, it's just warm blanket, dude. It's so much fun. It brings me back to those, for me in the, like early 90s and stuff, since I was born in 82. So I ended up watching this on, VHS and everything back in the day. But it feels like, growing up in my little small town and hanging out with, friends and riding your bikes and just, going on stupid little adventures. Ours never led to anywhere. It's mostly us just walking around in the woods and shit. But it's the vibe and the idea and the imagination were most certainly there, and for that I will kind of always have a very special place in my heart for this film. So super big art for me, everybody. I'm glad that old Huy Quan was in this one and I could bust this movie out again, because when you can go into a week knowing that, hey man, the movie I got to watch this week for the show is going to be a really good one, boy, you look at the world a whole different light there, don't you?
Oh, without a doubt.
You're just like, oh, sweet. I get to sit down and watch one of my favorite movies again. Even if you think this movie's just okay, you're sitting down for the Goonies. It could be a hell of a lot worse.
It's true. I've got one more. I've got one more quote.
Oh, please.
This is from Mick Alderman. He is a filmmaker and author, and he one of his movies is a documentary called 3 Weeks with the Goonies.
Okay.
So here he is quoting. I was 19 and a college student studying film and television production. At that time, I had been making short films for about 5 years, but had never spent any significant time on a professional movie set. I was also a huge admirer of Steven Spielberg's films and longed for the opportunity to watch him work. I approached location manager Tony Amatullo about the possibility of becoming involved somehow. It was from him that I learned that Richard Donner was directing, not Spielberg, but that was good too. My most treasured memory on the set of The Goonies was Richard Donner introducing me to Steven Spielberg as, quote, a fellow director.
Oh.
To this day, that remains one of the highlights of my life.
That's pretty awesome.
That is unbelievably generous.
Oh, yeah. I mean, when you have that kind of stuff, there's little tiny things like that kind of make all the difference in the world, especially if you're dealing with people that are of that level and stuff like that. When you can get a compliment like that, it's like, yeah, that's something that you're gonna hang your hat on for a good long time, I'd imagine.
Yeah, not
too shabby. Well, that is it, everybody. We got one more round in us for the Battle of Huy Quan here, and we're gonna be everyone thinks that like, oh, everything everywhere all at once. No, we've already did that on HMP. You can go back in the archives and check that one out. We're going to be doing a Huy Quan movie that I don't know that anybody's really talked about at all. I certainly haven't even heard of it until I was kind of like, hey, we need something here. What do we got? Well, guess what? We got a movie from 1990 called Breathing Fire. It's available on Prime Video right now. And so that's what we'll be covering next week. Stars Huy Quan and Bolo Young. The comedy couple. I don't know that it's comedy. I'm really making that up, but I'd like to think that it's a comedy. It's not. It's a punching movie more than likely. But we're gonna be checking that out next week. Sean, in the meantime, where else can we find your work on the internet?
Go to our YouTube and please leave a comment for your mom.
Oh yeah, we definitely like those comments for your mom. Like and subscribe. I'm going to be putting some new stuff out. Should be reviewing Panic Room coming out in 4K. I'm not looking forward to it because the early reviews have said the things don't look great.
But, are they using AI? Is he using AI again?
There's part of it, but I don't know. I'm gonna have to take a look and just kind of judge for myself. I've got all the previous DVDs and whatnot, so I'm just gonna be a little snooty McSnooter and kind of do a little bit of my own research instead of hearing what the internet has to say.
Man,
but here's hoping. So check all that out. Link is in the bio and everything. That'll do it, everybody, for this episode of Half-Ass Movie Podcast. Join us next week for Breathing Fire from 1990 for Sweet Sean's and Kovacs from the internet and the absent Bruce Leslie. I'm Adam Portress, and until next time, be a dirty baby and leave a comment for your mom.
All right, I'm back.
Yeah.
I have a think I told you that I my buddy that I met up with in Connecticut, who was my first friend. We were having dinner with him and his family, and he thankfully doesn't drink anymore either. And I was like, there's not like I don't even have like a fun story. Like there's not like, oh hey, and things got so bad that I was like, oh, you know what, I'm not drinking again. Like it was just like
This was a court ordered.
Right, exactly. Like there's no like great story behind it. Just like one day I was like, hey, I haven't drank in 6 months and I'm fine. Like I don't need to like that kind of thing, you know.
Yeah.
It's not like I'm a teetotaler, like where I'm like, and it shall never touch my lips. It's just one of those things where it's like, I can't think of a scenario right now where that's the answer. So like,
yeah.
And so I'm telling him this, and he's like, when I turned 50, I decided to stop drinking. And I was like, oh, that's probably pretty good. Yeah. You know, when you're blowing it up when you're in your 20s and maybe even like in your 30s, that's great. But when you're in, you know, when you get to be 50, maybe blowing it up ain't the best idea anymore.
Yeah. There's so much where it's just like, oh God, what it's like, it seems like so much work.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, like a hangover isn't a couple hours anymore. It's 2 days.
And that's like, again, I you know, this isn't a braggery, but I don't really even get hangovers. It's just like, oh, I got to go out and then I'm driving back. And it's like, there's just too much crap. It's like, I'd rather not. I'd rather just stay home. Like, that's a long way to go out. What's that, 20-minute drive? Ugh, no. That means it's 20 minutes back too, doesn't it? Yeah, it does. I'll be hammered at that point.
Let me ask you something. Do you have a take on the Goonies?
In as much as?
Just like, you know, like, because this is such well-trod territory. I don't like.
I got some thoughts.
I've got one take. And I did a little bit of a deep dive on this because so many people have talked about this movie so many times, but I looked it up and I found this really great article from a local paper in like just outside of Astoria where they shot it, you know, in Portland, and they're talking to the locals. It's like I don't know, like 10th or 20th or 25th anniversary of the Goonies, and they're talking to the locals about the movie being made. And I was like, oh, holy hell. And there's a lot of great quotes. And so like, I'll pepper it throughout the episode.
9-year-old Corey Feldman ran through every girl in that town. We didn't know how he did it, but God damn it, he did it.
Just because I wanted something different to say. Oh, and also I wanted to see what Siskel and Ebert said about the movie.
Yeah, I think I want to kind of just focus on the all of the parts that add up to the sum, I suppose, because I think that's where this movie shines, is just like all the stars aligning.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, let's roll it.
Cool.
Boom.
I know it.
Yeah, old Goonies. You know, I ain't gonna cry over that one. I almost didn't. No. I almost couldn't find the friggin' Blu-ray. I was just like, am I gonna have to fucking buy this again? What the hell is going on here? I feel like I should have upgraded to a 4K. I even thought about that early in the week. I was like, no, don't spend money. You've got a Blu-ray. Just watch the Blu-ray. It'll be fine. And it was fine.
Very good.
I survived. It was smart, but no, I got to waste money on Panic Room. Listen, 7 looked fantastic. He used a little bit of AI and stuff for that, but like I knew Fincher was definitely involved. I don't know how involved he was with Panic Room. I don't know. It's like, and that's one of his last movies. It's in 35 too, so it's gonna everything post then will probably be A-okay because it's all digital shit.
Yeah.
So that shouldn't be.
I didn't realize Panic Room was his last movie he shot on film. I didn't know that.
Pretty sure because he was monkeying around all you know, in that era and stuff like that. He wanted to be one of those dudes that just rushed over to film as soon as he could because he realized, hey, we don't have to change mags and shit, and I can just do 100 takes and you can all cry about it.
Yeah, and I think that is probably the thing why he wanted to use digital the most was because,
and he can really just fix it in post and stuff too. And the guy, like, he always wants to leave himself an out for everywhere and stuff, and give himself yet another option. Just like, hey, I need something in my back pocket just in case this is somewhere I want to go.
I can do 100 takes and it isn't going to cost $50,000.
Yeah.
Amazing.
It's just going to make Jake Gyllenhaal want to punch you. It's like, I'm just throwing a notebook on a car seat. Why do I have to do this 100 times? Because you didn't do it right. Now do it fucking right, and we won't have to worry about that.
Man.
At this point, I just go, hey man, he's got a good record. Let him cook.
Can we talk about Gyllenhaal for a second?
Sure.
I'm realizing he might be one of our finest actors.
Oh, I absolutely believe that.
He can do anything.
He needs to do some more comedies and stuff, which I think he would be very good in. I just don't think he's being offered a whole bunch of those, but I think he should do more of those too, just because I know that he can.
Yeah, I mean, think about just how good he is in the second Spider-Man movie. Like he's terrific in that, and it's kind of a funny role.
Oh,
but,
yeah.
He's cracking wise.
But he's good. Like, he's good in that, like, did you see the movie where he plays like a 911 operator?
Yes.
It's good. He's just sitting there talking on a phone, and it's riveting as shit because this guy is a really good actor.
Yeah. Yeah.
Big giant fan of Gyllenhaal. Like, everything that, like, he's one of those actors that, like, whatever, weird thing he's in, I'm excited to see it because he's given 100% wherever he's going. Like, between like Spider-Man versus like Nightcrawler, could you think of two more different performances out there?
Man,
wild.
Nightcrawler showed me too, like, oh, this guy even has yet a different speed that I've never seen him do before.
That weird, just kind of manic, and is like just the weight that he lost and how he just kind of looks, and just so perfect. My favorite movie that year.
I have been sleeping on that guy.
Yeah, and just look through all of it. Like, he's amazing in Darko and Jarhead, and like he just has hit after hit. Like, boy's really been like, there's I'm not going to say that there's not bad Jake Gyllenhaal movies out there.
There definitely is, but
he's good in most of them.
Most of them.
And then I would say the ones that he's not good in, probably not his fault. It's like, listen, I had to do Bubble Boy, all right? I had nothing.
Well, he's also 12 years old in that movie.
Yeah, he's not much of nothing. But I even remember seeing that trailer as a kid going, oh, this looks bad. And like, I was the demo, because I think he and I are the same age. So I was like the demo market for that. And even I was going like, no.
He's the Prince of Persia.
Yeah. And I don't think I ever watched that just because I played the video game and I'm like, what's this got to do with anything? The Prince of Persia, this white guy.
Man, it's so dumb.
But then again, those, listen, those games are fun though. Even from the old school IBM ones from back in the day to even the 360 ones, those were pretty good.
I was not playing video games when those games came out.
You might have been playing video games when the first one came out. That was
I might have
1989.
I might have been.
Them early ones where they were like, oof, some rough times. But those were the good, like in our small little town, like in our computer lab. I say that with the lightest of terms because they were like all Apple IIs. And then
that's what we learned on.
Yeah,
wow. Wow.
So that much later, they were still using those in our little country town, And so like the nice computer was the little IBM that you could play Prince of Persia on. And you were stoked if you got a couple of minutes on that bad boy because you weren't playing Oregon Trail over there on your Apple II, which is what we was doing.
Man, I'm tired of dying of dysentery.
Man, that's all you could do. Just like you pick the banker because you got the most money, which is probably dumb because you got zero survival skills at that point. As soon as you chuck the thing, go over the river, somebody's going to die. And like, I never got far in that dumbass game. I'd never go with resource games either. So it stands to reason. Like, craft this. No. That's why you get into like, hey, let's check out Minecraft. You're like, oh, this seems like an interesting idea. And then when you see all the crap you got to do, you're like, not for me. I got to learn what stuff is. I got to learn how to craft this, that, and the other. I'm too old for this. I turn into Danny Glover real fast.
Both my girls are totally into Minecraft.
Still. I can see it. Listen, I mean, it's if it snaps with you, man, I've seen some pretty impressive stuff. It's just one of those, like, I cannot fathom how anybody could sit down and do that. But I don't know. I see that with a lot of projects. There's some gal on TikTok that does like these little miniature rooms. and they're like for rats. She's got little rats, little mice, right? So it's the size of a little mouse. And there's like, she goes over, she's walking over, there's this tiny little door. She opens the door, and it is an honest to God 1-to-1. And when I tell you say 1-to-1, I mean 1-to-1 of like the full house living room.
Really?
It is astounding. Or like the Tool Time set. And like she'll have a little rat run around in the damn thing.
Wow.
It is, I'll have to send you one when I see him. Unbelievable. And you look at this just going like, and she's got so many different little rooms for all these rats and stuff. And they're just perfect like, it is astounding when you like look at the full house and you're like, that's where the fireplace is in this thing. What the fuck? How do you know? Like, I mean, it is so dead on. It's scary. and there's mice running around. And you're like, what? So good though. It's one of those.
I'd rather watch mice run around in the Full House set than the actual Full House. So that's cool.
Yeah, I forget what other ones there are, but there are a couple. And it's just when you see them in the little tiny minute detail everywhere, as somebody who's into that, you'll definitely get a kick out of it.
I definitely will. You are right.
It's something. It's like, but I don't know what makes one want to do that. That's what kind of gets me. It's just like, what in your mind just goes like, I'm going to spend a ridiculous amount of hours on miniaturizing all of this stuff. And it's so small. Like you'll see like little magazines and stuff in there that like she's recreated cool. Little magazines and shit. All the furniture, everything.
Send me something.
It's
send me something.
Wild. You'll love it. All right, my friend. We'll put this bad boy to bed. We didn't even talk about Drew Struzan's poster.
No, I know.
What a fucking great poster that is. It's so good. And like there's all the different variations with a different kid at the top of the little ladder there and everything. So good.
Yeah, it is good.
All right, buddy. We'll do it again, shall we?
Bye, fella.
Adios.